This documentary has been made to raise awareness of mental health in children and young adults. For many years, mental health has been a taboo subject, and people have been scared to discuss it, possibly because of the stereotypes, many of which are untrue and naive. Most people are affected by mental health in one way or another, whether it be themselves or they know somebody who has. The number of people acknowledging that they know someone close to them who has had a mental health illness increased from 58% in 2009 to 65% in 2014. 40% of people surveyed said they would be comfortable talking to their employer about mental health, although nearly half said they would feel uncomfortable, showing that there is still some way to go to improve attitudes.
More often than not, people are scared to admit that they are struggling with their mental health. It's the fear of judgment that stops people from getting help and can split up families and end lives. 1 in 10 children and young adults experience a mental health issue at any one time. 20,000 of them contacted Childline with suicidal thoughts. That's more than double the number 5 years ago. In an average group of 30 15-year-olds, 7 are likely to have been bullied, 10 are likely to have watched their parents separate, 1 could have experienced the death of a parent, 6 may be self-harming. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and Prince Harry are spearheading the Heads Together campaign to end stigma around mental health. Heads Together aims to change the national conversation on mental health and well-being, and is a partnership with inspiring charities with decades of experience in tackling stigma, raising awareness, and providing vital help for people with mental health challenges. About the charity, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and Prince Harry said, "Since we launched Heads Together last May, we have seen time and time again that shattering stigma and mental health starts with simple conversations. When you realise that mental health problems affect your friends, neighbours, children and spouses, the walls of judgment and prejudice around those issues begin to fall, and we all know that you cannot resolve a mental health issue by staying silent." Attitudes to mental health are at a tipping point. We hope these films show people how simple conversations can change the direction of an entire life. Please share them with your friends and families and join us in a national conversation on mental health in the weeks ahead.
Why Heads Together and why mental health?
It was your idea, I think.
It was your idea.
It's a common thread, wasn't it? Mental health sort of seemed to run between all the different areas that we were working in. So whether it's homelessness and the military with yourself and addiction with me and bereavement, there was this sort of underlying thread, wasn't there, of mental health. And this idea that there's all of us coming together to find a common theme and to show people how to have those, what we're calling sort of simple conversations and starting those conversations, which is often the hardest bit, really.
As you said, it's like almost like a form of medicine.
Yeah. But as a young mother actually said that to me at the Anna Forey Centre, she said actually just talking to somebody, having those conversations is like medicine for her. Yeah. And that is the point, is that actually it's okay to have that conversation, even if it is uncomfortable or awkward, but it's just starting it.
But the pressures on children nowadays, I think, are more than they ever were for us as well. I think each generation can say that. You've got so many things to worry about now, whether you're struggling for exams, whether you're struggling with home life, whether you're struggling with friends, then you have the social media angle. You can understand why, that coupled with the fact that you don't get out of the house because you're staring at a screen the whole time, there's got to be a lot of issues that are going to build from that if you're not careful.
And it's always sold as though everybody else's life is perfect.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And therefore you think if everyone else's life is perfect, there must be something wrong with me. If you can have a family environment where you can talk openly about your issues, that makes for a better family, better preparation, probably working better at a job, doing better at school, so it just goes on and on and on.
Because you often speak, don't you, about the emotional changes that sort of even you've gone through. And I think a lot of parents hopefully can, I suppose, identify with that, in that, having a child, particularly your first child, is such a sort of life-changing moment. Nothing can really prepare you for that. I remember the first few days with little George, you have no idea really what you're doing, no matter how many books you read, nothing can prepare you for
But
it.
there's no rule book, there's no training that teaches you how to do it. You just have to learn from previous generations and hope that you can translate it into what you want to do.
You remember up in Anglesey, so we'd had a couple of weeks of sort of family support, and then you were keen to get back to your work, and I was like, no, I'll come with you, of course, yeah. So we scooted off back to Anglesey with George. Those first few weeks, were
Steep learning curve.
a steep learning curve, massively.
When you have children, it really does put your own emotions and your own life into perspective. And it's been very, very interesting understanding, why I get so upset about some things or why some things affect me.
And it's not just the individual, is it? It has such an effect.
Such an effect.
On the rest of the family?
Precisely. Family, friends, everyone that cares about you. So you've got that one individual in the middle. Yeah. And then no one really, especially with the veterans piece as well, all the focus always seems to be on the individual with the injuries.
Exactly.
If it's physical injuries, then it's supposedly easier because you can see those injuries, where if it's hidden wounds, then no one can see that, but still that person is the focus. But the effect that has on them, their family and their friends is huge because people care about you.
Yeah.
But that is part of the healing process, and it's part of sharing your problems to halve them and to make them better with someone you trust and someone you know is going to help you.
Yeah.
Both of us have always been open to each other, saying, we've never really talked about it. We've never really talked about losing a mum at such a young age. And when you speak to other people's families and little kids and stuff, you think, wow, I don't want them to have to go through the same thing. So you want to, with a little bit of experience, you want to help as much as you can and try and empower them to have that conversation and to be brave enough for themselves to talk about it at a young age rather than bottling it up for far too long.
Considering everything that you boys obviously sadly went through and the trauma that you experienced, I do, particularly with the work within early intervention and things like that I've been doing in the early years, I do think it's incredible how strong and how you've been able to cope, really. And I put that down to your really early years, childhood experience, but also the relationship that you've got. You're amazingly close. Yeah. And yes,
Most of the time.
Most of the time. No, but and some families sadly aren't as lucky as you guys have been, and being able to share things.
But we have been brought closer because of the circumstances as well. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You are, uniquely bonded because of what we've been through.
Yeah.
But even Harry and I, over the years, have not talked enough about our mother. We've
never enough.
Has doing this campaign sort of made you realise that to a certain extent?
I think so. I always thought to myself, what's the point in bringing up the past? What's the point in bringing up something that's only going to make you sad? It ain't going to change it. It ain't going to bring her back. And when you start thinking like that, it can be really damaging. And you always said to me, you've got to sit down and think about those memories. But for me, it was like, don't want to think about it.
Yeah, but I think what must happen with us and must happen with others as well is that you have to prioritise your mental health. Yeah. You have to say to yourself at some point, because it's very easy to run away from it, to walk away from it and avoid it the whole time. Someone has to take the lead and has to be brave enough to force that conversation.
Marjorie Wallace, Chief Executive of the mental health charity SANE, said, despite the raised hopes following the Royal Prince's recent campaigning for mental health and London Marathon, cuts to the services across the country continue and people seeking help are still being failed. A recent report found that 40% of the mental health trusts in England had seen cuts to their budgets, and figures show mental health trusts received none of the extra £8 billion funding for the NHS over the last 4 years.
How come you specialised in mental health?
I just suppose it's not so much about specialising in mental health for early years, it's just something that we're really passionate about. And I also work with young adults also, so I work right through from 2 up until sort of 18, because I also work in a high school as well. But I think sort of developing mental health is really key, and really getting it an early intervention, because I'm noticing more and more of sort of mental health problems arising, much earlier. And I think the stigma is sort of not there like it used to be, but I think that's just through more awareness and more people being open and honest and talking about it, but that we need to sort of embrace that even.
Yeah, and then at the nursery, when kids have a mental health issue, how is that dealt with?
We generally raise it with parents, so we'll have an open honest discussion with parents and say we've noticed these sorts of behaviours. And then we'll probably advise them to go either to the GP or through the health visitor. And we'd also get advice from our early years SEN team in looking at the right people that we could probably key into, that sort of wider agencies we can support. But I think it's harder in early years, sort of acknowledging sort of mental health really when the children are so young and they're still developing.
And they can't say themselves, can they?
No, and it just sort of shows in sometimes their behaviours if they've witnessed sort of, domestic abuse, or it's knowing your children, and I think it's key to knowing your families.
Mental health, concerning mine, my mental health's quite good at the moment. In my early 20s though, I developed very severe anxiety, to which I had no idea whatsoever about. Nobody had ever spoken about things like that to me. And I just went very inward and had the usual things that other people had told me, and I told myself, get a grip of yourself, go on, there's nothing wrong with you, to which my situation got progressively worse, to the point where I went to see a GP about it, and I believe I was very lucky. I was asked to go on a particular help group, and they were fantastic. It was a mental health team in York Road in Ellesmere Port. I was really surprised when I went who would actually else be in the group, and there was 4 other people who I'd known and come across. One, quite a good friend, also suffering with mental health, with poor mental health at that time, and I was really surprised about that.
I've never personally suffered from a mental disorder, but I know people around me who have, and it doesn't look like a very nice place to be. My mum has definitely suffered with depression at times. My dad has suffered with seasonal affective disorder and depression, and it's very easy for life to our experiences of life in negative ways to affect us and our mental health. So yeah, I know for me, just from my parents' experience, I want to make mental health a priority in my life and ensure that I'm always feeling on top of the world.
Do you think there's stigma around mental health?
Yes, I do. I think slowly but surely it is getting easier to talk about mental health. I think it's becoming more of a priority within the government, within the NHS, and people are becoming more aware of it now. I think the British way has been to take the route of the stiff upper lip and to just stay silenced about these things, and to just take it on the chin and man up, or we hear these phrases quite a lot, but I think what that tends to do is it just tends to suppress a lot of emotion, a lot of negative thoughts. We don't feel like we can express them, release them, so that leaves us feeling quite trapped, I guess, which would cause depression or anxiety, or so I think slowly but surely I think we're moving through that and past that, and I'm pretty hopeful about the future of mental health. It's great that there are so many charities out there supporting it, giving us free resources to mindfulness, and plenty of things that we can be doing to ensure that we have good mental health.
Do you feel that your friends would feel comfortable approaching you with your experiences because you know how that support really helped you?
Yeah, I mean, from the stigma many years ago, actually saying, you know, you're having mental health, the poor mental health, there was a massive big stigma to it. Generally, things have changed better in the right direction. There's still a long way to go. But I think, yeah, I'm quite comfortable at saying to different people, yes, I've had the support from the mental health team. 25, 30 years ago, I wasn't really telling anybody, even when I was going through the support thing. It was only one or two close friends that I would actually say, I'm having support from the mental health team because of the stigma. Nowadays, my personal thing, I'm quite happy to say to anybody, I've had support from the mental health team.
Well, what I've done as well is I've invested a lot of money, a lot of time into like life coaching, learning about how to have healthy relationships, how to do life well, how to get the most out of life. It's just been something that I've been interested in, self-development, self-growth. And so that enables me to be a better friend to people. It enables me to have healthy relationships, and I'd hope my friends could open up about whatever's going on in their lives. And I do have very open conversations with friends. I have lots of laughs as well. I laugh a lot in life. I have a good time, but I think it is important to share what's really going on. So
Yeah. Like a problem shared is a problem halved.
This is it. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that if your friends if you had a mental health condition, you would be able to approach your friends and family and talk about it?
I absolutely do. Yeah. I am very lucky to be around people who are open to talk about this kind of thing. I guess it was just the way I was brought up, in a kind of a household where, you know, we talk about these things, whatever's going on, we share them with each other. I've got friends where we have very healthy relationships, so I can openly share what's going on, communicate well, and it's just, I mean, it's been a journey. It's not always been easy to be that way, but it's definitely worth it, because then I'm not bottling up all of these kind of emotions and negative thoughts. I'm expressing the way I'm feeling, so things don't seem to progress down full-blown anxiety or full-blown depression, you know?
You're not flying out. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so do you think enough is done in society to help people with mental health these days?
I would say the last year or two, things like social media, it's quite good that there's a lot more posts and things put around just talking about mental health. The more it's spoken about, it becomes commonplace. Anything that's...
and more people become more open.
Yeah, so more open, they're more aware, they're not afraid of, like when I was younger, anybody with mental health, suffering mental health, would generally have gone to a hospital, and the stigma attached to that.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays, the word mental health, it's good, and things like what you're doing now, it's raising more and more awareness that it's something, the facts and figures say that most people in their lifetime will go through a mental health, through, you know, suffering quite badly with mental health, but who doesn't at some point in their week feel a bit low and there's more awareness to talk and ask people how they're doing without telling them how they should be doing. that's great, because that can lift somebody's mood and get somebody in a better place.
I think more could be done, absolutely. The way I kind of see it is, you know, they've kind of made mental health like a medical thing. You know, it's for the NHS to sort out. But I think it should be cultivated within culture. You know, I think it's something that we should learn about at school. I think everyone should be able to learn about how their minds work, so they understand what they're dealing with here.
There's not a lot about that in education, is there?
There isn't. No, I was never taught about that.
No.
Yet it's probably one of the most important things, because our brains, our minds, they're very important within our lives. You know, they play a big role in how our lives pan out. Our beliefs pretty much create our lives. You know, whatever we believe, it's, you know, if we have like beliefs that limit us, that make us feel negative about ourselves, the belief that I am not enough, I think that's quite a limiting belief, you know. And it certainly, if you don't feel like you're enough, if you don't feel like you're lovable or worthy, it's like that kind of belief can manifest into some pretty dark places, I'm sure. I've certainly been there. So I think it's about education, it's about cultivating it within the culture, within the media, and, you know, I mean, you look at America, and they seem to have a very open way of talking about, you know, what's going on. They express very well, they're quite vulnerable, or some are, for sure. Like, you know, in places like California, everyone seems to have a life coach. Everyone seems to, you know, be open to therapy and just accept it as a way of life to get through life healthily and well. So I think, you know, they're kind of moving in the right direction with it. But I think it is about bringing it into a culture so that it's kind of normalised.
I think there's also, because the NHS is stymied by budgets, and as with schools, I think we've got a long way to go. I think we've improved massively from where we were, but I think we need to sort of, it's down to money, and down to having the right professionals, offering the right sort of support for people around, you know, for all ages, because, you know, I have got personal experience of mental health with my daughter, but I know that if we'd not had the intervention earlier, you know, we wouldn't be in her recovery process where she is now. But I have, you know, for me, sometimes it's not a halfway house, so you can be have a mental health issue, for example, you can go to hospital and have that wraparound care, and then when you discharge, there's sort of, or discharge back home, you're sort of back with no backup support. Right. So for me, I think sometimes there needs to be more of a halfway house where...
Like an outpatient.
Yeah, well, I think there's the outpatients, but if you've had somebody who's been in hospital for a long admission, I think there needs to be, you know, either like another sort of halfway house where they have still have their wraparound care, but not as much before they're actually discharged fully back.
So it's
and then
like
still
a
have the
gradual
service.
thing.
Yes, yeah.
So we've just heard again that being open and talking about our mental health is probably one of the best ways to stop a mental health condition from developing. It's something that we should be brought up with and taught about at school. Our minds are the most important part of all of us, which is why it is important for us to protect it. The best way we can break down the barriers and the stigma of mental health is by, like I said, being taught at school from an early age that discussing our mental health is the right thing to do. With mental health, sometimes there are no warning signs, because the person affected may want to keep their personal feelings private, and so will work hard at hiding their thoughts and feelings. Unexpected mood changes, including suddenly being calm and happy, after being very depressed, social withdrawal, changing sleeping and eating patterns, lack of energy, neglect of personal appearance, reckless behaviour, increased drug or alcohol abuse, anger or irritability, talking about suicide or wanting to die. Their statements may be vague or they would appear to be joking. Giving away possessions, saying goodbye to friends and family as if they won't be seeing them again. So what do? You ask. It sounds scary, but the best thing to do is talk about it. Just showing your support and giving someone space to communicate their feelings can be a huge release for them. What should you say? Not too much. Above all, listen. Explore how they are feeling. Don't try to solve their problems. They just need reassurance that they are valued, that they can talk about how they feel, and that help is available. Share your concerns with others. Don't be afraid to involve family, friends, or colleagues, and talk to them about how you are feeling. Mental health left untreated could lead to the person affected hurting themselves or others. So the sooner they get out, the better. Suicide is the biggest killer of young people, male and female, aged under 35 in the UK. Suicide is a taboo subject. Stigma promotes silence, which is killing young people. Until 1961, suicide was a crime in the UK. Those who had attempted suicide before this time and their families could be prosecuted. This was the first of many improvements in changing the mindset of society and breaking down the stigma and the barriers faced by people with mental health issues. Talking about our fears and feelings is difficult, even to those we know, love and care about us. This can prevent other people from recognizing distress and being able to help in a crisis. Words are often totally inadequate to convey the amount of pain a person may be suffering. It is easy to understand that someone is hurting if they have been badly injured or are physically ill. Emotional pain cannot be seen, but it can be judged as unbearable. With this documentary, we hope to get rid of some of the stigma around mental health and show that talking can really help. There is always somebody to talk to, whether it is your family and friends with a chat, even just a text, or there are confidential helplines and sources of support that are there to help.